Are you crediting the Eagles or blaming the Chiefs, Shannon?
Well, I've been sounding the alarm bells about the Chiefs from very, very early on. And at some point in time, even Patrick Mahomes' greatness can't overcome the inadequacies at the wide receiver position. Yep. Also, when you don't, they're averaging 5 points a game in the second half. Yep. Third straight games in which they've been shut out in the second half. It's that you can't overcome that. I don't care how great your quarterback is. Yep. And at some point, it just, and look at this, 53 total points in the second half. This is the third, look, week 8 loss to Denver, shutout. Week 9 loss to win at Germany, shutout. Mm-hmm. Last night, shutout. Chiefs second half possessions, punt 4 plays, 3 and out, red zone fumble, punt 6 plays, 3 and out, turnover on downs. Yeah. You're not going to win like that. And this offense and what we've seen from this offense, and this has been the best defense Patrick Mahomes has played with. They were sensational last night. Yep. But this offense is not good enough. And the days of, because Patrick Mahomes has never, ever not been able to sleep in a hotel in his city for an AFC championship game. Right. That looks like it's about to change. Yep. People don't fear them anymore because that offense leaves a lot to be fearful of, not to be fearful of. I'm gonna give the Philly their credit. Yeah. They hung in there. They were down 17-7. This is a very resilient team. And Stephen A., I told you yesterday, somehow they'll mess around. But if it's close, late in the ball game, Jalen Hurts will find a way to win this ball game. But the Kansas City Chiefs have a lot of issues offensively. And right now they can't figure it, and they haven't figured it out. Well, but when Valdez came, when that ball went up, oh my Lord, I looked at Ash. I said, "Ain't no way he's gonna catch this ball because he's a body catcher." Yeah. And the worst thing you can have in inclement weather are body catchers, and you put it outside of their body. And the moment he had to take this ball over, that's the hardest catch to make, Stephen A. Because you've got to track the ball over your shoulders, and you got to follow it here. And if you look at it, as soon as he hit his hands, he put it up here. As soon as he hit the dirt, whoop, gone.
I feel you on that, and I appreciate the explanation. Obviously, we're going to go with blaming the Chiefs for this loss. There's no question about it. You can bring up Valdez-Scantling and the point that you're making. I'm certainly not refuting that. I'm just simply saying it's no excuse. Matter of fact, and by the way, I'll give you an excuse, by the way, even though I really, really wouldn't because you're a professional, get the damn job done. Yeah. But I'd throw you an excuse if you were accustomed to playing in Southern California or South Beach all the time, and then you go to inclement weather. This brother was in Green Bay for years. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, this is not foreign territory for you. These conditions, these inclement weather, it's not foreign to you. And you drop a pass like that with a game on the line, perfect touchdown. And that's why I can sit up there. We can talk about them being scoreless in the second half of the last 3 games, getting outscored 38-0 over the last 3 games in that second half. They're obviously not impressive, okay? We get all of that. But when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, remember, Travis Kelce, he gets the ball punched out of him. That was in the red zone. Yeah. Touchdown pass. Those are that's at least 10 points.
Patrick Mahomes was pick in the end zone.
That's right. And but I'm saying that stuff, I'll give the Eagles credit for that. Yeah. But with Travis Kelce, that's not normal. That wouldn't normally happen. That's at least 3 points right there. The touchdown, that should have been a touchdown to Valdez-Scantling. That's 10 points right there. You win this game if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, and those two plays don't happen. And so I look at it from that perspective, even though I give the Eagles a lot of credit for sticking in there, staying in there, et cetera, et cetera. I get that. They deserve a lot of credit. 2 big catches by Devontae Smith basically alleviate some of their concerns. But in the end, you're the Kansas City Chiefs. You've been a prolific offense all of these years. To have your receivers now dropping 26 passes on the season, 5 last night, it's gotten to a point where it's embarrassing. But I'm not going to just point to the offense. I'm also going to point to the organization. You might have wanted to pay Tyreek Hill that money after all.
Or bring in D-Hop. Yeah. D-Hop was available last year. Yeah. But before you go, Saturday, I'm going to say this. We've got to be careful because they've done this a lot of times. Patrick Mahomes makes a play and everything is forgiven. That's right. But they have a lot of issues that keep leading them down this road that make them find themselves in this very position every single game. They need to fix the big picture and not just count on Patrick Mahomes' greatness to bail them out every time.
Okay. I'm going to say it this way. I couldn't agree with all of y'all's points. 100% agree. But we got to give the Eagles credit because here's the deal. Travis Kelce, from last year, he had 12 explosive plays after 9 games. He's got 4 this year, right? So everybody understands you take Travis Kelce out of the game, it's going to be a much different game.
Yes.
Guess what they did last night to A.J. Brown, who, by the way, is an MVP candidate for the NFL. He had 1 catch for 8 yards. You know who else stood up? Swift stood up. You know who else stood up? Devontae Smith stood up. Give them dudes credit about what they did. The Eagles knew we're going to triple team them. That's the one that you have to drop on for the touchdown. They triple teamed Travis Kelce, understanding if we take him out of the game, the other guys won't beat us. The Eagles find ways to beat you. Give them credit for what they do. They find ways to make plays, whether it's give Swift the ball, whether it's the tush push, whether it's Jalen Hurts pulling it down. All of a sudden, they're going to run the ball because they're getting McDuffie blitzing off the edge from Spagnuolo's defense. They understand how to counteract whatever this team is doing. And the problem for the Chiefs is those other players aren't showing up with answers to the test. The Eagles are. So at some point, you got to give credit to Devontae Smith making that catch deep in the game. You got to give him credit for running the football and making things happen. You got to give him credit for putting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Now, from the Chiefs' perspective, I think the biggest indictment of them is at the trade deadline. We all saw this happening.
Yes.
Why don't you go get a receiver? Go get a dude, man. Like Howie Roseman got Roby and Bradley Roby, and he got Kevin Byard in the last month. By the way, Byard had the pick in the end zone, and Roby punched the ball out. Right. You got two dudes that have been there for a month that just made plays. Last year, Roseman goes out and gets A.J. Brown. Like, he finds ways to make his team better. I love Brett Veach and what he's done, but at some point, you saw the writing on the wall. Sky Moore's not doing it. Rice is coming along, but very few second-round picks in the end are going to be that guy their first year. They got to find ways for these second-round picks.
Darius Toney had regressed like we thought
he had a decent game last night, but they have got to find ways. Everybody understands the relationship between Kelce and Mahomes. But, man, you know this. Hall of Fame, the easiest position to take out of your game plan is tight end.
Yes.
On the one to Watson, the touchdown, the very first play, he bracketed in the end zone. Yeah. He's triple-teamed. He's double-teamed. Because their speed, he can't get over the top. They understand he's got to throw the ball somewhere else. Right. So everybody else is playing man, and let's go make it happen.
So Mike Tomlin has announced that the Steelers have fired offensive coordinator Mike Canada despite their offensive struggles. The Steelers are 6-4 but have a negative point differential and have been outgained in every game this season. Stephen A., what do you think about Matt Canada being let go?
It was necessary. It was long overdue. About damn time. I don't say that with a smile on my face. I don't say that with any comedy or anything like that. I don't enjoy somebody losing their job. That's never something fun. I don't wish anything. I want everybody to make their money and be able to feed their family and take care. But you have to be productive.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, he was not only non-productive this season, he's been non-productive since he's been the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this year alone, just to give you the numbers, 28th in total offense, 28th in scoring offense, 31st in passing offense, 25th in third down conversions, 25th in red zone efficiencies. Kenny Pickett, of the 32 quarterbacks with at least 150 pass attempts this season, Pickett ranks 29th in completion percentage, 29th in touchdown percentage, 30th in pass yards per game. But here's all y'all need to know. I got two things here, okay? Since Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator since the start of the 2021 season, the Steelers are the only NFL team without 400 yards of offense in the game. The only team.
Wow.
The only team. No other team can say that. Just the Steelers. And number two, the Steelers are dead last in the league with only 2 games scoring 30 or more points during that span. The Steelers have scored 30 points or more twice in 3 years. Come on, y'all. You get to a point where it's like, wait a minute. If a player was this non-productive, he'd have been gone. If somebody else was non-productive, they'd have been gone.
For sure.
Okay, at some point in time, you got to get the job done. And I know with Omar Khan, the GM, and with the Steelers, with Mike Tomlin, the coach, the association with the league, with the Steelers for all of these years, the level of loyalty, commitment. I know that Matt Canada had a hard thing having to deal with Ben Roethlisberger, so we don't need to hold that first year with them against them because that was Big Ben's last year. And essentially, you knew that he was basically a statue. He couldn't move, for crying out loud.
Right.
And you had to work with that because of his Hall of Fame credentials and what he had meant to the Steelers as an organization all of those years. You couldn't just bounce him out of there. We get that. But how do you explain the last 2 years? You got Najee Harris. You got this kid Warren who can ball.
Yeah.
You got Pickens. You got Deontay Johnson. You got Freiermuth. You got an improved offensive line. I mean, how many excuses do you need? There's no innovativeness. There's nothing there. And the writing was on the wall. And I think Najee Harris, speaking up the way that he did, was the final straw.
For sure.
for Mike Tomlin to sit up there and say, I got to do something because I'm losing my team. Remember, he tried to dismiss it when George Pickens was just disgusted and ready to quit for crying out loud. And he talked about a rock in his shoe or whatever it is, a pebble in his shoe. But when Najee Harris came out, you got the feeling, look, man, they all know what's going on, and now they looking at Coach T like, what you gonna do? You demand of us, but look what you giving us. You had to do something. This was long overdue. I'm glad the Steelers finally made the move.
I think you solve a problem in the short term, but I don't think you found your long-term solution.
I agree.
Are you sure, Sliderberger hands Kenny Pickett with them little gloves on, 2 gloves, are you sure he's the answer?
No, I'm not.
So I'm not so sure. You could get Kyle Shanahan, and then still Kenny Pickett might not be your answer. So you do, in the short term, I agree with you, Steve, that you had to do something because they were growing restless. They get tired of going out there throwing for 125 yards. They get tired of going out there in every game, they're outscored. And like you said, haven't had a 400-yard game in forever. And so the players like, hold on, we practice hard all week. And then we get in the game, and this is what we put on tape. So Mike Tomlin had no choice but to do this. But are we sure Kenny Pickett is the guy regardless of OC?
I don't think you know the answer. To your point, I don't think you know the answer the rest of this year. I think you got to figure it out as you go. But to Stephen A's point and your point, this was a locker room issue. And Mike T understood how important. He can fight the fans. Mike T, he's steadfast. He's not going to be moved off a spot. When Najee Harris said what he said at the end, Pickens had already said it. Deontay Johnson had already said it. These guys had already complained kind of publicly. When Najee Harris was like, hey, man, when I'm in the game, this defense is giving me this look. I'm getting no yards. Warren comes in. We're busting big runs. Pickens is getting no targets. At some point, you go back to your locker room, and the guys are looking at you like, hey, man, like, you're not even giving us an opportunity to win games. We got to find some way, and you're 6-4 in the AFC where you can go make a chance, go make some noise, in there at that point. I think as Mike Tomlin goes, I know he's disappointed he has to make the move. No one likes to fire anybody, but at some point, all the light begins to turn to you. And if Mike Tomlin's sitting in that seat, man, and all the guys are like, hey, coach, man, we're giving you everything. You ain't giving us what we need.
Especially when you consider the kind of man that Mike Tomlin is. You see videotapes of him talking to players like, hey, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than you. It's not about just you, etc. Well, the players now looked at him and said it ain't about just you because that's the only reason this guy is still here. And then you got a defense ranked 7th in the NFL, but make no mistake about it, this is a big-time defense. But ultimately, you tax them a bit too much because you're constantly asking them to come to the rescue, and their level of frustration elevates because they're looking at you and they're saying, you asking this of us, but look at what you're giving us to work with, and you ain't making the change that everybody and their grandmama knows needs to be made.
Anytime an organization makes a change in staff during the season, that lets you know that it's pretty bad.
Absolutely.
Because all things being equal, they would prefer to let this thing play out. At the end of the season, we go our separate ways. But to make a change this deep into the season, Stephen A., Saturday, you know this.
6-4.
Had to miss it.